20 minutes from now, several United States Marines will be lying on the ground, bleeding into the black volcanic sand. One will never stand again. Another will spend the rest of his life carrying scars across his face. None of them knows it yet. Right now, all they can see is a lone Japanese soldier standing in the open with both hands raised above his head. He looks exhausted. His uniform is torn. His rifle is nowhere to be seen.
If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.
Every instinct tells them he wants to surrender. Every human instinct tells them to help. But somewhere behind the line, a hard voice cuts through the humid air. Don't go to him. That order sounds cruel. It sounds impossible. Yet it exists, because other Marines had already learned a terrible lesson. In the Pacific War, the man with his hands up could sometimes be the most dangerous person on the battlefield. Imagine the heat pressing down on your helmet. The smell of burned trees mixes with smoke from fresh artillery fire. Insects buzz through the jungle while rifles crack somewhere beyond the next ridge. Every shadow feels alive. Every movement demands attention. This is not Europe. This is the Pacific in the summer of 1944, where every hill, cave, and patch of jungle can hide an enemy who refuses to quit. Here, survival depends as much on patience as on courage. On June 15, 1944, Marines from the 2nd and 4th Marine Divisions landed on the beaches of the island of Saipan in the Mariana Islands. The landing began before sunrise after hours of naval bombardment. From the decks of landing craft, young Marines watched black smoke rise over the island. Many believed the shelling had destroyed most Japanese defenses. They were wrong. Hidden bunkers, reinforced caves, and carefully prepared fighting positions survived. As the landing craft reached the shore, machine gun fire and mortar shells tore into the first waves. Men who had trained together for months suddenly found themselves fighting simply to take a few yards of beach. By the second day, the Marines had pushed inland. The beaches were behind them, but the danger had only grown. Thick sugarcane fields blocked visibility. Steep hills overlooked narrow trails. Small groups of Japanese soldiers moved silently through the jungle, striking whenever they saw an opening. The fighting became personal. Instead of large attacks across open ground, Marines faced hidden rifles, snipers in trees, and machine gun nests that appeared only when someone stepped into the wrong place. The Marine Corps quickly discovered something that made this battlefield different from almost every campaign many American soldiers had imagined before reaching the Pacific. Surrender was rare. Many Japanese units fought until they were killed. Some officers taught that capture brought shame. Others believed that dying in battle served the emperor better than becoming a prisoner. That belief did not mean every Japanese soldier refused to surrender. Some did give themselves up, especially when wounded, isolated, or starving. But the uncertainty became its own weapon. Marines could never know which man truly wanted to surrender, and which man was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As the fighting continued across islands like Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Peleliu, and Iwo Jima, hard lessons spread from one Marine unit to another. They were not always written in manuals at first. Many were passed quietly between veterans and replacements. A squad leader might stop a new Marine before patrol and simply say, "Watch the hands. Watch the ground. Never rush in." Those words were not meant to remove compassion. They were meant to keep young Marines alive. The countdown on this day continued. 17 minutes remained. A rifle squad from the 25th Marines moved carefully along the edge of a damaged cane field. Their boots crushed broken stalks, while flies gathered around abandoned equipment left after yesterday's fighting. The point man stopped and raised his fist. Everyone froze. About 80 yards ahead stood a lone Japanese soldier. His helmet was gone. One sleeve hung loose where it had been torn away. Both hands were high above his head. He did not move. The youngest Marine in the squad had never seen anyone surrender before. He had spent weeks hearing stories about impossible fighting inside caves and desperate charges at night. Now he believed the battle might finally be ending for at least one enemy soldier. He took one careful step forward. The squad leader immediately grabbed his shoulder. Nobody fired. Nobody spoke. For several long seconds, nothing happened. That silence was often the most dangerous sound on a Pacific battlefield. Experienced Marines knew that battles were rarely decided by loud moments alone. Many deadly surprises began in complete silence. A hidden sniper waited until someone relaxed. A mortar crew held fire until several men gathered together. A machine gun remained quiet until its target entered the perfect killing zone. Patience could become a weapon. Weeks earlier, another Marine company had faced a nearly identical situation on a different section of the island. A wounded Japanese soldier appeared alone, waving a piece of white cloth. Two Marines moved toward him with a corpsman only a few steps behind. Before they closed the distance, hidden riflemen opened fire from concealed positions. The wounded man threw himself flat while grenades exploded around the rescue party. The entire scene had been carefully prepared as bait. Not every surrender was a trap. That was exactly what made the situation so difficult. Many Japanese prisoners were taken during the Pacific campaign. Some were badly wounded. Others had become separated from their units with no food or ammunition left. American intelligence officers valued these prisoners because they sometimes revealed useful information about troop strength, cave systems, supply shortages, and defensive plans. Marines understood that prisoners could save lives through information, but reaching them safely required discipline that often felt completely unnatural. As more battles were fought across the Pacific, Marine officers developed strict procedures. A surrendering soldier would usually be ordered to stop well away from American lines. He would be directed to drop every weapon. He might be instructed to remove equipment piece by piece. Marines watched for sudden movements. They watched sleeves, boots, belts, and even loose clothing. They searched for concealed grenades because some attackers had hidden explosives beneath jackets or tied them around their bodies. Others waited until Americans came close enough before making one final attack. These precautions did not appear because Marines lacked humanity. They appeared because the battlefield had repeatedly punished trust given too quickly. 15 minutes remained. The lone soldier still stood in the clearing. Sweat rolled down the faces of the Marines watching him. Their fingers rested against rifle stocks without tightening on the trigger. The platoon sergeant studied the tree line instead of the man with raised hands. That choice confused one of the replacements. Shouldn't they be watching the surrendering soldier? The answer came from experience. If this was a trap, the greatest danger might not be standing in the open. It might already be hidden somewhere nearby. The platoon sergeant slowly scanned the hills through binoculars. Nothing moved. No birds lifted into the air. No leaves shook in the wind. The jungle looked perfectly still. Sometimes that perfect stillness meant there was no danger at all. Sometimes it meant dozens of eyes were already watching every Marine movement. Marine patrols had learned another painful lesson during the island campaigns. Japanese defenders often allowed Americans to believe an area had been abandoned. They stayed hidden until Marines relaxed, broke formation, or gathered around wounded men. Then the firing began from several directions at once. Seconds of confidence could become minutes of chaos. The Marine Corps trained its infantry to think beyond the obvious target. Every ridge, ravine, cave entrance, and cluster of palm trees became part of a larger puzzle. Good leaders constantly asked one question: If I wanted to ambush my own unit, where would I do it? That habit saved countless lives. Back in the clearing, nothing changed. The soldiers' hands remained high, the Marines remained still. But the clock continued to move. 14 minutes remained. Nobody yet understood that the next decision would test every lesson these Marines had learned since landing on Saipan. 14 minutes remained. The platoon sergeant lowered his binoculars without taking his eyes off the jungle. Every Marine could feel the tension spreading through the line. No one wanted to fire on a man who appeared to be surrendering, but no one wanted to become the next lesson passed from one replacement to another. The order was simple. Hold your position. Watch everything. Trust nothing until it had been checked. One Marine picked up a loudspeaker carried for situations like this. The instructions were short and clear. The lone soldier was ordered to walk forward slowly. He was told to stop several times before reaching the Marine line. Then he was ordered to turn around. His uniform was searched with careful eyes from a distance. He was told to remove his field equipment and let it fall to the ground. Every movement happened slowly because speed could hide danger. The man hesitated. It lasted only a moment. But on a battlefield, one moment could feel like a full minute. Then he bent slightly, as if reaching for the buckle on his belt. The Marines tightened their grip on their rifles. Nothing happened. He stood upright again. The equipment fell into the dirt. The countdown continued. 10 minutes remained. Farther down the line, another patrol had reached the edge of a rocky ridge. They could not see the clearing, but they could hear distant voices carried by the wind. The patrol leader had fought on Guadalcanal. He quietly reminded his men never to bunch together. They spread out, leaving several yards between each Marine. It was a habit learned through months of brutal combat. One burst of machine gun fire could not hit everyone if the formation stayed open. The Pacific War forced Marines to fight in places unlike anything they had trained for back home. Thick jungle blocked visibility. Volcanic rock shattered explosions into deadly fragments. Cave systems allowed defenders to disappear, then reappear somewhere completely unexpected. On islands such as Saipan, Peleliu, and later Iwo Jima, Marines often defeated one defensive position only to discover another hidden 50 yards behind it. Every victory uncovered another danger. The Japanese soldier in the clearing now stood exactly where the Marines had ordered him to stop. He looked exhausted. His face was covered with dust. One arm trembled from fatigue. A young Marine whispered that maybe the man really wanted to surrender. The platoon sergeant did not answer. Experience had taught him that wanting something to be true did not make it true. 8 minutes remained. Across the Pacific campaign, Marines encountered genuine surrenders and deadly deception. Historians have documented incidents in which wounded or apparently helpless Japanese soldiers concealed grenades or lured Americans into exposed positions. Other incidents later grew larger through battlefield stories repeated from unit to unit. Veterans often mixed first-hand experience with lessons they had heard from earlier campaigns. Whether every story happened exactly as told mattered less than the effect they had on battlefield behavior. The possibility alone forced Marines to treat every surrender with extreme caution. That caution protected both Marines and genuine prisoners. By keeping distance, controlling every movement, and refusing to rush forward, Marines reduced the chance that fear or confusion would end in unnecessary bloodshed. Discipline became more valuable than emotion. 6 minutes remained. The platoon sergeant finally made his decision. 2 experienced Marines moved forward. Not quickly, not carelessly. They advanced while the rest of the squad covered every patch of jungle with rifles ready. Another Marine watched the tree line through a telescopic sight. A machine gun team shifted slightly to cover the slope beyond the clearing. Nobody looked only at the prisoner. Everyone watched for the unseen danger that might still be waiting. Halfway across the clearing, one Marine noticed fresh footprints leading toward a cluster of bushes. They did not belong to the surrendering soldier alone. Several pairs of boots had passed there recently. He immediately raised his hand. The patrol stopped. Silence returned. Then a single rifle shot cracked from deep inside the vegetation. The bullet snapped over their heads. Within seconds, more shots followed from two different directions. The Marines dropped to the ground and answered with controlled fire. Dirt leaped into the air around the hidden firing positions. The machine gun opened up, forcing the concealed riflemen to keep their heads down. The surrendering soldier threw himself flat as the shooting erupted around him. Whether he had planned the ambush or simply found himself trapped between both sides could not be known in that instant. The Marines could not stop to ask questions. Their only task was survival. The hidden firing lasted less than 3 minutes. When it ended, the jungle became quiet once again. The Marines advanced carefully, clearing one position after another. They discovered several Japanese soldiers hidden in shallow fighting holes overlooking the clearing. The footprints had warned them just in time. Because the platoon had refused to rush toward the man with raised hands, the ambush failed to achieve the surprise its defenders had hoped for. The countdown reached 0. Several Marines were wounded. None of the patrol was killed. The platoon sergeant looked back across the clearing. The young replacement who had wanted to run forward now understood why discipline had mattered more than instinct. Mercy without caution could have cost every man in the patrol his life. Stories like this shaped Marine training throughout the Pacific War. Officers reminded replacements that compassion and caution were not enemies. A surrender had to be handled professionally, not emotionally. Distance, clear instructions, overlapping security, and careful searches became standard practice. These methods protected Marines while also giving genuine prisoners the safest possible chance to surrender without confusion. The fighting continued across the Pacific through 1944 and into 1945. On Peleliu, Marines battled over sharp coral ridges where defenders remained hidden for days. On Iwo Jima, underground tunnels allowed Japanese troops to appear where no one expected. On Okinawa, the largest amphibious assault in the Pacific brought weeks of exhausting combat. Every island reinforced the same lesson. Never assume the battle is over simply because the battlefield becomes quiet. Many veterans later spoke about how difficult these moments truly were. They understood that not every Japanese soldier wished to fight to the death. Thousands eventually became prisoners during the war. But they also knew that hesitation, false assumptions, or abandoning established procedures could destroy an entire squad in seconds. Those experiences stayed with them long after the war ended. Years later, military historians studying Marine operations found that battlefield procedures evolved because soldiers constantly adapted to what they encountered. Rules were not created in comfortable offices far from combat. They were shaped by patrol reports, after-action reviews, painful mistakes, and lives that could never be replaced. Every instruction carried a story behind it. Every warning had been written by experience. So when people hear that Marines were ordered never to rush toward the guy with his hands up, the meaning is often misunderstood. It was not an order to reject every surrender. It was an order to survive long enough to accept one safely. It reminded Marines that on the Pacific battlefield, appearances alone could never be trusted. Discipline had to come before emotion. Imagine that lonely clearing one last time. Smoke hangs over broken trees. The air is heavy with heat and the smell of burned powder. A single figure stands with empty hands raised high while a line of tired Marines watches from behind their rifles. To someone seeing only that moment, the hesitation might seem cold. But those who had fought through Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Peleliu, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa knew something others did not. In war, the hardest decision is often refusing to act until you know the truth. That lesson was learned at a terrible cost. It protected countless Marines during the final years of the Pacific Campaign. And long after the guns fell silent in 1945, veterans still remembered that the most dangerous battlefield trap was often the one that looked the most harmless. Sometimes survival depended not on firing first, but on waiting just a few more seconds before taking a single step forward.